Mr. DiBello, thank you so much for spending some time today with us. We are really excited to reconnect with you. But for our listeners who might not know who you are, can you share a little bit about what you do with Space Florida and what that is?
Well, I have to admit, this is probably the last stop in my career. But of all the things that I've done, from work in the Pentagon to having my own venture firm to spending a career with KPMG in both aerospace and defense, as well as in the space practice that I ran there for them, this is the most exciting by far. Space Florida was created by the legislature to serve as a public corporation for the common good, but basically with a charter to grow the aerospace industry in the state. And it is focused more on space, but broadly, we do cover a lot of aerospace as well. And uniquely, this is also an organization that's an independent special district, which means that I'm both a for-profit public corporation at the same time I'm an independent special district, and I have governmental authority, and that kind of allows us to do things government to government at one level and then turn around and basically do a deal with industry to help attract and grow new aerospace companies here. That's fundamentally what we focus on.
Excellent. I remember when there were different organizations pre-Space Florida, and could you talk a little bit about when Space Florida began in 2009, I believe it was, and what was the lay of the land when you took over as the lead for Space Florida? Because you know the next question is going to be how that has changed to today, which has been pretty big.
Well, I think, again, a lot of it is timing, but this is actually the fourth iteration of a Space Florida. And the others started actually in 1989. And I believe that the decision then was to create something that could help manage launch function that was going to be commercial. NASA had its role, and the Air Force had its national security role, and the state felt that there needed to be a space authority that could help develop the commercial industry. Those first three iterations of Space Florida focused on launch. And in 2009, rather, when I took over, we were facing the retirement of the shuttle. The outlook in the space program, and certainly in the region, was pretty bleak. This area had been hard hit before from an overdependence on the large federal program. And so we set as a goal the ability to diversify the industry and not only continue to develop the capabilities for launch in a variety of areas, but also to begin to focus on manufacturing, to focus on a broader range of research and development, and to focus on building the supply chain for space and aerospace in the broadest sense, as opposed to just launching things. And I think if I had to characterize the big change, we've gone from an era where we were launching 6 to 8 vehicles a year to this year, we're going to launch close to 50. And we're no longer just launching things, we are building the rockets and the satellites that we launch. That's been the biggest transition and the thing I'm most proud of.
Absolutely. I remember a briefing given by, maybe it was Dale Ketchum or Mark Bontrager or Tony, one of your great lieutenants at Tallahassee, about the anticipated tempo of about a launch a week. And, you know, that has come, that's a reality, right? Almost a launch a week. And that's fantastic, especially we actually got to take students to tour the OneWeb satellite factory. We haven't been in Blue Origin yet, but there's so much, you know, obviously so much business coming. Do you ever get positive feedback from the legislature, or mostly they're just, you know, duking it out with you about your budget? Do you get some feedback from the government?
I really do. When I really sit down and talk with legislators, and especially with the governor's office, they realize the power that this organization has been given and the way that we've been able to use it in the marketplace to help grow industry. It's a very successful mechanism or format that the legislature created. I also know that they are grateful for the fact that we are statewide in our charter.
Mm-hmm.
And I have today a deal log that we keep of opportunities. It is twice the size that it was today pre-COVID. So that our deal log has just doubled during COVID. And over half of those opportunities are away from the East Coast, away from the Space Coast. They really are in Orlando, in Jacksonville, in the Panhandle, in Southern Florida, and clearly all along the Tampa region. And there are a half a dozen major aerospace clusters in the state where we're helping build new manufacturing facilities, new research facilities, as well as providing tooling and equipment to enable companies to come to Florida, get into the assets that they need, and to thrive while here. So we get positive support from the legislature. There's always a little bit of duking it out of our budget, but that's just the way that Tallahassee speaks.
Well, since we're talking a little bit about Tallahassee, our students have been really excited and honored to participate in, Space Days. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about why it's important that we advocate on behalf of Florida's space industry? I mean, besides the obvious budgeting parts, what are some of the things that maybe they don't recognize that we need to educate our legislators about?
Well, I think it really is important. There are a lot of counties in the state, and many of them don't have a heavy dose of manufacturing, or there is some space activity in every county in the state. But I can tell you that the major areas, they understand what Space Florida does. There are a lot of legislators that don't. So number one, we want to be able to explain to them what we do and can do to help them with whatever pursuits may be appropriate there. But it's not about Space Florida. It's really about growing the aerospace and tech sectors in their counties. And that is something that every county wants to do. And that is where we also fuel the imaginations and the skills interest in our young workforce. So it is very important that we continue to advocate about space and aerospace, which are horizontal industries and have a broad array of capabilities within them or disciplines within them. And that represents a wide body of academics pursuits for students who may not necessarily apply in electrical engineering to do design of circuitry, but there are all kinds of other things that electrical engineers do, or with mechanical engineers. And so we want to be able to convey to the legislature the importance of the aerospace sector to the well-being of the economic well-being of the state.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about, Kevin DiMarzio of Redwire is one of our friends, and we podcasted with him. He's in Jacksonville. I love the Florida-Israel partnership, the venture where companies can pitch and work with the companies there. In fact, a biomedical engineer, doctor at Moffitt Cancer Center over at Tampa, is working on microfluidics, and we're hoping to work with them as well. So as our students are trying to do biological type aerospace, we are actually reaching out to some of the folks that are directly related to the business that you've done here all over the state. But I think about Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, and the Space Coast, just right off the top of my head. So we are recipients of the good work that you're doing. It actually is finally trickling down to even our students that are as young as 10 or 12 years old.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that, but I also see it when I travel around the state, and I try to visit with schools in different parts of the state, and not just talk about Space Florida again, but to talk about the potential for their future in aerospace and the STEM fields. And they all have an interest in some aspect of STEM, but today, the real exciting things in technology are occurring along the edges. And so no matter what discipline you're in, you have multiple facets to spring away into a wide variety of industry applications when you graduate.
I'm just thinking about your space life sciences building and the high-tech agriculture, right? I think that's one industry that Florida can really make a mark. And our proximity to Space Coast and so much agriculture, that just stands out to me as another area.
I completely agree. The space environment is giving us the opportunity to understand agriculture and the way plants behave in vastly different ways, which help us improve productivity here on the ground, or crop yields here on the ground. And the Israelis, you're right, have done some wonderful things with knowledge of different modes of irrigation, as well as how to understand how plants accept nutrients. And that has really helped make some advances in food production.
Since we were talking about students and the importance of education and helping students to realize what potential lies in the industry, we recognize one of the things that our students talk about a lot is, the pipeline, the leaking of the pipeline, the graying of the workforce. What do we need to do more as educators, or even at the district level or even at the state level, to do something about that issue with the pipeline?
I guess there's no easy answer to that, but I'm a big believer that the more we create in students an understanding of what the job environments are like on the outside, how the tools that they study are being utilized to better mankind in some way, whether it's to make a product for a company or to truly improve some process. And you have to presume that every product that's coming out is improving something within their market, or they won't last very long in the market. But the more students can see that, and the earlier that they can see that there's a connection between even simple math and higher levels of education, and then application out in the marketplace, the more excited they're going to get, because it's their future. And in the past, I don't think we've done as good a job in helping young students understand what an architect does and what an electrical engineer can do, or what various fields of subdivisions of medicine can do. And that is one level of effort that I think really would have some payoff. Another is what I call intimacy between corporations and the academic or talent supply chain. The more that industry gets involved in working with educators to help students understand the connection and to understand what companies are looking to hire and what the environment is like, the better they're going to feel about the supply that's coming out of the academic system. And the easier it's going to be for us to retain a lot of our talent supply chain product here in the state, as opposed to losing it to other states.
Right. Well, what I can tell you is Sean and I have worked really hard in the last, let's say 6 years, to establish a real aerospace education foothold here in Palm Beach County. And I can tell you that Jim Moss of Aerojet Rocketdyne has been a really good supporter. Dr. Andy Bernhardt at Sikorsky. We've had supporters, good supporters in the county. And now we have students that are in Tampa and different places in the state and even other states. And we really do believe that, companies talk about the workforce that they need, and we're trying to connect with them. We're at that place you need to invest at the middle school. Once they're in university, it's almost too late. We need to get them earlier in the pipeline, because we can have a more diverse pipeline, and we can have, I think, a higher quality product at the end. But I do want to shout out we've gotten really good support in the county. We've been able to broaden and actually work with some kids that would never get a chance to do aerospace if we weren't meeting with them. So we would like to encourage you in any way that is appropriate to help us. Let's identify the companies that want to really invest in STEM, and let's help them find a good place to put their resources.
I can tell you from my experience, especially with a lot of the newer companies that we're bringing into the state, and these are new entrants into the market. You mentioned one of them is Redwire, but there are a number of others that are like that, and they understand, and they are perfectly willing to invest in the middle schools and even earlier, but to get young people involved, whether it's in thinking about what satellites can do or helping design satellites that, with some assistance, that can eventually be flown. We're trying to focus on generating more flight opportunities, or what I'll call satellite and educational kits that can be used to get more young people involved in understanding satellite technology and what can be done with it. And to understand that the satellite is a device, but what it produces is either an image or data or something that has the potential for significant value. And in the future, we're going to see an economy in space that comes from all of that. And that portends also a bright future for a lot of these young people if they can have their eyes opened to the future that's there.
Right. And as you may know, we were selected twice by NASA for the CSLI, the CubeSat Launch Initiative. We just signed last week our first contract, self-funded, for our first hosted payload. It'll happen first quarter of next year. But I actually have kids that their job is, they want to create philanthropies so that high school teams in Florida don't have to compete against the MITs and the Georgia Techs for CubeSat rides. And they can, I literally have a kid, and that's his mission in life, is to fund high school competition through, merit-based winners and help them get rides to space. So we are your biggest fans when it comes to increased access to the space station and low Earth orbit. So thank you for that.
Well, one of the very exciting things, Kevin, and I will say that I see happening in this next decade is that there are going to be a whole host of new launch vehicles and a whole host of new destination hardware that is put into orbit that would welcome, whether it's on a satellite or on a platform for doing research or for conducting experiments, but they welcome the opportunity to fly some of these payloads. And our hope is to dramatically increase the amount of opportunities for student-driven satellite payloads for experimentation. And I don't doubt that educators, as that happens, will become more and more involved themselves in helping to guide some of that. But again, I think it's important that industry and our education profile get together like this to make a lot of that happen.
We wholeheartly support you. Want to pivot just a little? You have a innovation, like a forum event coming up on May 20th, I believe, that Space Florida is supporting. Would you like to share just a little bit about that event on May 20th?
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you that one of our major objectives over this next decade, because we realize that just as the future of this industry depends on workforce capital, it also depends on financial capital. And so we have as a major objective to have Florida position and evolve over this next decade as a space capital state. And we're looking to bring major investors from all around the world, the major banks, insurance companies, and pension funds to Florida. As a way of attracting them, we started doing work with the Florida Venture Forum and with certain countries, their ministries of innovation and technology. And the Israeli program that you mentioned is a perfect example of a collaboration between the space industry there and the Ministry of Science and Technology and Florida. And we each put money into a pool and we give awards out to industry. Well, we're doing that with the Florida Venture Forum, which again is a body that is also interested in drawing attention to the growing body of capital companies that are here in Florida. And we do one or two aerospace-related showcases during the year. And that one in May is a significant event that does allow, we get sometimes 80 to 100 companies that apply, 20 are selected. They're coached right through to the day of presentation, and then we give prize money to the best companies. But I believe that we are now close to $600 million that has been generated for the companies that have presented at these events by the capital community who see what they like and they put money into it. So it's really been a successful program.
You're doing so many things well, because, we've gone to Congress for years and said, You know, Florida used to be the, you know, we put all our eggs in the we launch shuttles basket, but now we're in the we build satellites and build rockets. And that's fantastic. We were just at the Edison Awards last week. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say we picked up a silver award, our first time applying to the Edison. And we really believe in the intersection of aerospace, entrepreneurship, and education. And that is the sweet spot. And you know, obviously we're big fans of yours. I'm just going to ask one question here. My last question is going to be, what do you see in the next 10 years as the priorities for the state? And what do you hope will happen in the next 10 years? And I know you've covered some of the points, but I'll give you that as sort of my parting question.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Clearly, I think Florida's aerospace industry has a future in manufacturing. We will continue to attract and grow our manufacturing industry in all of the advanced manufacturing areas. So, and that by its very nature will drive subfields of AI and robotics and the various methods of handling materials. So it's advanced materials and composites, but the AI and robotics part of it in particular is very exciting because that builds on the capabilities that we already have and plays right into the what I call the academic interests of even the youngest students. They start with gaming, whether it's, but they grow quickly into this. And so I think that the movement of the market will play right into the interests of our young people if we can be smart about connecting them. Another area is the emergence of an aerospace and space economy. And what I'm referring to here, we'll be introducing new platforms into our transportation system, whether they be autonomous vehicles, flying cars, air taxis, short haul eVTOLs and things like that. And that's going to require a whole raft of new, not only manufacturing, but thought process that goes into how we organize those, control the traffic, develop the sense and avoid technology and the rules of the road, and introduce those into our airspace so that we can have economic growth in places we hadn't even thought about before. And that's going to have an impact on Florida. But the other end of it is up there in space, as more and more companies go up into space to do research or to provide, or to do manufacturing and create value, or to provide services, whether they're fixing satellites, refueling satellites, deorbiting satellites, cleaning up and doing space debris cleanup, or going up there for adventure tourism or for a variety of other purposes. The fact is that we will see companies and individuals going up there creating value and bringing that value back down to earth as an economic element that we want here in Florida. So it's an exciting time. I think you're going to see a lot of industry growth around those things. And I think we'll continue to learn how to use the knowledge and the space technology insights that are gained and apply it here on the ground in agriculture and other areas. That's a picture of what I see in the future.
That's an amazing picture. And on our final note, we always kind of ask just a generic question about advice. So if we have some students who might be listening, parents, that if you wanted to encourage somebody to really look at aerospace, you know, as a career choice, what advice do you have for our listeners today?
Well, I would have them look at aerospace clearly in the broadest sense possible. When I was a kid, I was fascinated with how you could draw a picture of an airplane on paper, and then there was a process to take that and actually build it out of metal and have it fly. And that whole process of how you get from one end to the other was fascinating to me. But today, when you look at aerospace, it's everything from advanced software to AI and robotics, to advanced materials, to avionics, electronics and propulsion systems, and it goes on. So we're dealing with a very, very broad industry, and that's true whether you're talking about space as well, which is very exciting. And the real advances, the real excitement is that in traditional degree programs, the real advances are occurring along the edges, where we look at AI and biology and nanotechnology, and the immersion of the two. And so it's opening up whole rafts of new fields, medical fields or science fields that are open to students. And I would encourage them to learn as much as possible about all of these. But the other key element of it, apart from seeing it in a broader context, is to have passion. Passion, nothing's accomplished without passion. And I am convinced if they can enjoy learning, enjoy the environment that they're in, and find things they enjoy doing and pursue the things they enjoy doing, they'll have a successful career no matter where it is.
I think that's a great place to stop. Thank you so much for giving so much to our audience today. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you again in person soon.
I look forward to that as well. It's good seeing both of you.
Thank you very much.